All right. Well, should we dive in?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Well, first question that we had was, how did your journey into becoming an author happen? Where did your career path start, and what ultimately pushed you to decide to write books?
Yeah, so I began as a broadcaster, first in radio and then television. I was the late night news guy for a very small ABC TV affiliate in the Midwestern United States. I wasn't very good at it though, and it wasn't long before I was not the late night news guy for a
Sure.
and so I graduated into sales. And the challenge I had when I first started in sales was that I had no formal background in sales, and I had no sales training. And apparently, the company I was working for didn't have any either because it was non-existent, and I had to figure it out for myself. Well, I'm not a figure it out for myself guy. There are people who can do that, and I applaud them. They do great at that. That's not me. I need to have a methodology, a system. And so for the first few months, I really floundered. And then I was in a bookstore one day looking for something. I wasn't sure what. I mean, this is 40 years ago. So sales books and things. I didn't even know those existed. You just they weren't as plentiful as they are now. But there were two books in there, two books on sales, and just looking at the titles, it was just that they were about how to sell. I thought, wow, this is great. I can't believe this. One was by Zig Ziglar. One was by Tom Hopkins, two legends in the sales space. And I got their books, and I mean, I dove into it. I like to say I didn't read it. I didn't read them. I devoured them. And every night after work, from the moment I got home, I'd be studying into the wee hours of the night. And really, in the next within a few weeks, my sales began to really go well. And obviously, the only difference was I now had a methodology. I had a system. Yeah, I personally define a system as excuse me, as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. In other words, the key is predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, then you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and eventually you'll get the desired result of B. So this was life-changing for me. So I really began to just make a study. I mean, a total study of sales, and I loved it. And one of the things I love the most about it is you begin to realize that in studying sales, it isn't just the how-to that you're studying, as important as that is. It's the mental game. It's the emotional game. It's the personal growth that comes along with it. Because what we know now is of course success is an inside job, and it simply manifests itself outwardly. So I began to get all the books that were recommended, such as How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Think and Grow Rich, and As a Man Thinketh, and The Richest Man in Babylon, and Psycho Cybernetics, and just all the classics of the sales and personal development space. And again, I just grew to love it. Well, eventually I worked my way up to sales manager of a different company. And I started, kind of teaching others what was working for me. And, as they say in the old Seinfeld show, yada, 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 35 years later, here we
Yeah.
are. But no, so so it kind of segued into a speaking career, and of course, part of that was writing a book, and my first book back in the '90s was called Endless Referrals, which was a how-to book for for salespeople and entrepreneurs. And back then, in end of 2007, 2008, John David Mann and I came out with the Go Giver, and and so forth. But that's really how it started. Segued from sales into sales teaching, and sales teaching to writing, and so forth.
Very cool. So for those that have not read The Go-Giver or that have never heard of it, what is a go-giver?
So a go-giver is simply someone who has learned, or perhaps always intuitively knew, that shifting your focus, and this is really the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, a more fulfilling way, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some, woo-woo way out there kind of magical, mystical reasons. Not at all. It actually makes very logical, rational sense when you think about it. I mean, when you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on the other person, discovering what they need, what they want, what they desired, focusing on how you can help them overcome their problems and challenges, focusing on how you can help bring them closer to happiness, if you will. People feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you if they need or want what you have, but they definitely want to be your personal walking ambassador and share you with the world. So it's really, in a sense, it's understanding that by taking the focus off of yourself, that's actually the best and most profitable way of doing business.
When was it that you kind of discovered this methodology of being a go-giver yourself, or started practicing the go-giver way?
Well, in a sense, I was very, very fortunate to be born to a couple of people, to my mom and dad, who just fantastic people who this is what they embodied. Okay. It wasn't a word that was used or whatever, but it was, that's, what I grew up watching. And I was, very fortunate to meet others along the way that had similar qualities of that understanding. Now, as you get older and you get into the business world, you start seeing other people doing things in different ways. And sometimes you get
Yeah.
off track and you kind of lose your own way. And then you hopefully eventually come back to it. One of the things that really helped me was, and I'd been in sales for a couple of years at this point, and again was doing pretty well. And then I left one company and went to another one. And this company sold a very high ticket item, but it was, business to consumer. I know that Ryan, you sell the business to business, and you sell a pretty high ticket item, as right. And so, I came into the company in a slump, and I just was having trouble getting out of that slump. And the more I tried, the more I focused on myself, which is a real rookie mistake, right? Because if you're in a slump, you focus on yourself. Well, nobody's going to buy from you because you need to make the sale, right? And
Mhm.
so, the more you focus on yourself and the more desperate you become, the worse it is for you. And try, that's why it's so, that's so insidious, and it's such it's so difficult sometimes to get out of a sales slump. One day I come back to the office after having really, blown a sale, and I must have been looking very disgusted at myself. Okay. Because one of the older people at the company, and he was not in the sales department, I think he was in the engineering department, an older guy, and I think he retired soon after. Nice guy, didn't say a lot, but one of these people who, whenever he did say something, it was always pretty profound. And I think he saw me as sort of like Joe in the story. The young, ambitious, up and coming, hardworking, aggressive, salesperson who was really but was very frustrated and was not living up to his potential. That would be me, right? Now he
Mhm.
saw me as Joe, which I'd write about with John David Mann 20 years after that, or whatever it happened to be, 25 years after that. But he saw me in that way. And he said, Berg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Berg, can I give you some advice? And I said, yeah, please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward. And that reward will be in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. And that's when it came to me. That's when it hit me that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson, right? Great salesmanship is never about the product or service. It doesn't matter if it's cars or elevators or witchmahoozies or widgets or whatever. Okay. Great salesmanship. Now, the product or service is important. It's just not what the sale was about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about adding immense value to the lives you choose to touch. It's about another person's life being better because you are part of it. And I think when we approach sales from that premise, we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. And that's why, people who sell as go-givers, again, their focus just absolutely laser on bringing value to another human being, are the ones who are so sustainably successful and the highest money earners.
That's great. And I think that's why Matt and I we're alike in that way too. We're just genuine, authentic people that when we're in the sales role, we're just trying to make that other person happy. I know you talk about price and value, throughout the Go Giver book.
By the way, did I say Ryan or Matt? Did I say you were in correctly? So you're business to business.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I said I'm business to consumer, but we both sell high ticket items. All of us sell high ticket. We're sold high ticket items.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, a full elevator package, you're up to, I mean, depending on if it's a passenger or a freight, anywhere
Right.
from $100,000 to $250,000. So
yeah, we call that high ticket.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, in the car business too, just for me making that switch from the hospital industry to the auto industry, it's just relating with that person, relating with that customer. What value can we bring them? It's not about the car and the price right away. And I even take this all the way back to my days I worked in the mall selling shoes. Like I'm not selling a shoe, I'm selling myself and bringing the value of what do you need now? What do you need in the future?
Right.
You have a family, what's going to help you out? And just that concept.
Absolutely. It's always, the shoe is the, in Go Givers sell more, the follow-up to the Go Giver, we call that a MacGuffin, which is an old movie term coined by Alfred Hitchcock, the great director. And a MacGuffin is in a movie, the MacGuffin is the object around which the movie revolves. Okay. But when you get to the end of the movie, you realize that object that the movie was about wasn't really what it was about. That was just something that helped you get to the main lesson. It's like in the movie Rocky, right? The old classic. The MacGuffin is his fight with Apollo Creed. Okay, but that was the MacGuffin. It all evolved around that. But that wasn't what the movie was about. It was about a guy who kind of felt like a loser, who didn't have a lot to offer the world, and who came to realize that he really was a good human being who had a lot to offer and brought great value and to everybody who, you know what I'm saying? And so that's really, and we look at sales the same way. The product or service, that's the MacGuffin, and it's important. It's just not what it's about.
Right. So when you talk about value, can you talk about, how does a person add value without increasing the price astronomically, without costing too much?
Yeah. Well, so let's look at what value is, and especially with regard to price. Okay, because we talk about the first law from the Go Giver, the law of value, which says your true worth, in the business sense, of course, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear that, it's rather counterproductive sounding, right? Counterintuitive. I mean, give more in value than I take in payment. I mean, that sounds all nicey nice and everything, but it also kind of sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. Give more in value than I take in payment. So we have to understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. It's the price. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, this service, this concept, this idea, this MacGuffin, what have you, that brings so much worth to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. And I often bring up a very quick example that's kind of easy to grasp. If you were to hire an accountant to do your taxes and she charges you $1,000, that is her fee. That's literally her price, $1,000. But what value does she give you for this? Well, she let's say she saves you $5,000 in taxes. She saves you countless hours of time, helping you to be more productive, or just not less stressed, or less. She provides you and your family with the peace of mind and the security of knowing it was done correctly. Well, She gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 price. So she gave you more in value than she took in payment. You feel great about it because you received so much compared to what you paid. But she also made a very healthy profit because for her, it was worthwhile to sell, lease her time, her energy, her knowledge, her, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so both of you came away, well, in any free market based exchange. And when we say free market, we simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. People do business with each other on their own volition. In any free market based exchange, there are always at least two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each of them come away better off afterwards than they were before.
Right.
Okay. So that's value. This is, by the way, but what happens because, and then I'll answer your question about adding value without a cost. But it's key to understand that it starts with the salesperson. It's up to the salesperson to be able to communicate that value with what they say and what they do and who they are, right? But here's the thing: your accountant obtained this account from you not because she was focused on her fee. She was focused on the immense value she could provide you. Okay. The fee is just the result. This is why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which means nothing more than that the value must be the focus. The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a very natural result of the value you've provided. So let's talk about bringing value without it costing extra money, because again, we understand now that value is in the eye of the beholder, right? It's the relative worth to another person. And this accountant, as good a job as she did, that's nothing more or less than any other accountant could probably do. So what separates her? What distinguishes her? What distinguishes any of us when we have a product that's a commodity? And most products or services are commodities. It's not a bad word. It's just that which is bought, sold, or traded. And that's, these days, technology has leveled the playing field. Most products work really well. And, you get a TV set today, or, when I was a kid, we had these things called rabbit ears, which were these, long kind of wire antenna. And half the time I was my family's rabbit ears. I mean, I had to stand there and hold them the right way so the TV would go, well, it's no longer an issue. It's not, now you get a TV, it's like, wow. It's, they work, things work now. So how do you add value in a way that distinguishes you from your competition? Okay. Because if you can't, if a prospective customer sees no significant difference between you and your competitors, it's always going to come down to who has the lowest price. Okay, that's just natural. That's human nature. And unless your last name is Walmart, right, or Amazon.com, trying to make low price your unique selling proposition is not a good way to do business. It's not productive. It's not profitable. It's not fulfilling, and it's not sustainable. When you sell on low price, you're a resource. When you sell on when you sell on low price, you're a commodity. Excuse me. When you sell on high value, you're a resource. And your goal is to be a trusted resource. So how do you add that value? Well, first, understand you are that additional value. It's you who needs to be that additional value. How? Well, the good news is there are dozens, if not hundreds of ways to communicate that additional value, but they tend to come down to 5 what we call elements of value. And those elements of value are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And to the degree that you can communicate one or more, hopefully all 5 of those elements of value at every touch point, right? From the time you make that initial contact, whether it's an inbound call or an outbound connection, whether you meet them in person or over the internet or phone, from the time you meet them through the relationship building process, through the follow-up and the follow-through and the sales process and the referral process, to the degree that you and everyone on your team can communicate those elements, that's the degree you take both price and your competition out of the picture. When you think about excellence, yeah, it's competence. It's being good at what you do. It's bringing your full self, your full conscious self. It doesn't mean holding yourself to an impossible standard of perfection, but it means you know your stuff. You're continuing to read the study. You know your niche market to the point that you understand the problems of their business more than they understand it when it comes to how your product or service can help them, which allows you to not only discover what they need, want, and desire, but to add those insights that they didn't even know that, to be able to point out problems or opportunities they didn't even know were there that you can help them with, right? Excellence is being a good team member. It's edifying those who do the service aspect, or those who do the finance, or those who do right. It's all those parts. But excellence is also something else. Excellence is how you make that person feel about themselves, about the situation, and about you. It's how the phone is answered when someone calls. Is it answered within a couple of rings? Is it answered in a way that this person feels welcome for calling, or when they come into the shop or whatever? Are they made welcome even though the person welcoming them may have 10 other things going on? To that person who comes in or calls on the phone, they're the only person in their world who matters. When we have to put someone on hold, do we just say, hold, please, click? Or do we say, may I place you on hold for a moment, please? And then, nice. And try not to keep them on too long without coming back to them. It's returning calls timely. It's returning emails or text time. Doesn't mean you jump through hoops inappropriately, but it means you're always creating that environment where that person feels special and they know that you have them in mind. It's how you greet them and how you respond. It's one of my favorite examples is the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain. When you walk into a Ritz-Carlton and you're greeted by a guest contact employee, they will never greet you by saying, hey, hi, or how you doing. It's always good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon the time of day. When you need some help from them, not only will they put down what they're doing and help you and see it through to the end, but when you say thank you, they will never say no problem. They won't even say you're welcome. They'll say my pleasure. And they'll do this every single time. No exceptions, no excuses. And someone might say, well, but yeah, that's the Ritz-Carlton. I mean, they're the biggies and they've got this budget. And they can, you know what? The interesting thing is that any other hotel, motel in the world, whether corporate, conglomerate, or small mom and pop, could do the same thing. Marriott, Hyatt, Westin, all fine properties could do that. And they do sometimes. Okay.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
all the time. Super 8 hotels could do that. Motel 6, where Tom Bodett leaves the lights on for us. They could do that too. And so could Dave and Mary and their team of 3 people at Dave and Mary Stop and Stay In. They could do it too. Okay.
Mhm.
That's excellence. Now, you might say, wait a second, Berg. Dave and Mary and their team of 3 people at the Stop and Stay In, they could say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and my pleasure till the cows come home. They ain't taking market share from Ritz-Carlton. Of course they're not. But they will totally own their targeted demographic. And they will take some share away from Motel 6 and maybe even Super 8. Because you know that when you go to Dave and Mary Stop and Stay In, you're special. They're going to greet you as you're special. They're going to remember you. They're going to remember your preferences. They're going to make sure that you are absolutely feeling like the most valuable guest at a, whatever, right? So see, it's all these things we can do. That's excellence. And to the degree, and we've had companies, after I've come in to speak and I've done this vignette, they've made a commitment to, yeah, we're going to start doing that. And some do, but some do it for a week and then they forget. So, it's always how much. So that's just one aspect of how to add value. That doesn't cost anything. What does that cost? You start, reteaching people to greet people in a certain way and do
Right.
certain things. And so that's one of the 5 elements of value.
It's such a good example. We go to a town, Ely, Minnesota, every winter for ice fishing. And there's a really big hotel there, but when we were younger, you couldn't afford it. So we stayed at the budget host in Ely. And the service we got was so great
Mhm.
that now that we're older, we can afford wherever we want to go. We always go back to the budget host because
Yeah, exactly.
it's great.
Yeah, yeah, great example.
So Bob, I know we have about 5 minutes left. So the go-giver, it's a mentality, it's a mindset, not only for entrepreneurs and business people. I feel even after reading the book, it's just for everyday life. Like, how can I bring value to my family,
Sure,
to
sure.
my wife? And for somebody listening, or even after they read this book, like you touched on a little bit, but I want to be a go-giver. Like, what is that first step I should do? Do I take a step back? Is it a mindset shift? And to your point, like, I don't want to do it just after a week. Or Joe in the book, he put into action after every law.
That's key. So it begins with awareness. It begins with awareness that there's a way of doing something that might be different from the way I'm doing it now, that while I may have attained some type of modicum of success, I could be more successful, and how do I do that? Am I going to become more successful doing the same thing I've been doing? Or is there another way that seems to work for people on a much more consistent basis? And so, once you kind of come to the conclusion that, doing it the go-giver way is the way that, both feels right to you and seems to be the way you're going to get the best and highest results. Well, now you make a shift over to doing that. So what do? Just like Joe, you learn the laws and you apply it. And just like Joe, you don't have to apply them perfectly. That's not the issue. It was just to form the habit of applying them and understanding that, there's five. There's the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. It's not just about giving and giving value, and it's certainly not about being some type of martyr or self-sacrificial person or whatever. No, it's understanding that as you give and you give value to others in a way that they understand it to be of value, as you touch the lives of numerous people with that value, which is law number 2, as you place the interest of the customer, of the other people first, not out of some self-sacrificial self-sabotage, no, but out of understanding that people are going to do business with you for their reasons, not your reasons. They don't care that you have a quota to meet. What they want is to be better off after that, right? Okay. When it's being authentic, law number 4, acting congruently with your values, okay, which is what authenticity is. Then it's understanding that you've created the context for receiving. And you've got to be able to do that too, because you understand that just like, you don't just breathe out, you've also got to breathe in. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving. You breathe in, which is receiving. It's understanding that giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work together in tandem. But what we know is that the laws of life, the laws of the universe say the giving comes first. We know that we harvest before we plant, before we harvest. We sow before we reap. It's like Pindar said to Joe early in the story. Some people go up to the fireplace and they say, first you give me some fire and some heat, then I'll throw on some logs and some newspaper and light a match. Well, life doesn't work that way, right? You give value first. And then as you do that, you understand you've created that benevolent context for success. And then you allow yourself to receive that.
So from the Go Giver, there's been a couple other Go Giver books that have stemmed from this book, the Go Giver Influencer, Sell More, and Leader. Do those books follow the same story-based telling?
The only one that doesn't is Go Givers Sell More. That is an application base for the original Go Giver book. And that's
Okay.
the second one we wrote. We wrote that because so many people were writing in with success stories, and other people were writing in after reading the book and saying, well, how does this work in real life? We had all these great stories. And so we put these stories of people who've utilized, but also people who were doing it long before the Go-Giver. They ever heard, because remember, there's nothing new about the principles in the Go-Giver. Not one bit. I mean, these are universal laws, They've been around forever, right?
Sure.
We just name them. John and I, kind of name them, put them in story form. John was the lead writer and storyteller. I'm more of a how-to guy. It was his great storytelling that really made this happen. But that's why Go-Givers sell more. We put that as an application guide. Then it was, well, how would the Go-Giver principles work in terms of leadership? How would the Go-Giver principles and laws work in terms of influence? My favorite book in the series is the Go-Giver Influencer, because that's about people skills. That's about people skills. And, it's not about being an internet influencer. It's not about being on Instagram, about being Instagram influencer, with 5 jillion billion followers that's not what we're talking about. It's a fine thing. That's fine if that's what it is, but that's not what this is about. It's about understanding that people skills are the differentiator, because again, talent is important. Of course it is. Technical skills, important. Being able to, all important, but it's those people who are able to work with others, who are able to collaborate with others, those people who are able to lead others, to influence others. And it really is about, and we've alluded to this a little earlier, but it's about how to get the results you want when dealing with others in such a way that not only does everyone win, but the other person feels genuinely good about themselves. The person who can do that is the person who, wow, they are just positioned for stratospheric success.
That's awesome. I have one last question.
Sure.
And when you and John were writing the Go-Giver, did you ever imagine that it would have the impact that it's had today?
We thought there'd be a market for it. We felt the timing was right, and that that it would be successful. I'm not sure we could have predicted. The Go-Giver itself now is sold well over 1 million copies. All told, with all of them, it's about 100. It's about 1,500,000. That whatever. I don't know that we would have predicted that. But we just felt there was a market for it, and that it would be successful. It's a good question.
Thank you for writing it, because it has been very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to be respectful of your time, and thank you so much for hopping on here on a Saturday morning, Memorial weekend. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And if you ever need anything from us, just feel free to contact us anytime.
Thank you again. I appreciate you both, and I appreciate what you're doing, and the big difference, the value you're providing to so many people through what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, Bob.